All right, folks, welcome to the runningrestaurants.com podcast, where we bring you the tips, tools, and techniques you need to make your restaurant more profitable and successful. Today, we're talking about the soundtrack of your dining room and bar, because the right music, as we talk about, can lift check average, speed turns, keep guests lingering at the bar, all the good stuff. So my guest is Ola Sars from Soundtrack, here to demystify music licensing and everything that goes with it. Man, just before we got on, Ola, we were talking about 3 years since you've been on the show, man. Can't believe it has been that long. You guys have been busy. You have been growing. You have been all over social media. I see you traveling all over the place. What's going on for you? What's going on for the company?
Thanks for having me, Jamie. I'm glad to be back. 3 years. Wow.
Yeah.
It felt, honestly, is a cliche, but it does not feel like it was 3 years ago. So time flies. Yes, we've been busy for sure. Soundtrack is now the leading platform for music for business worldwide. Actually, we're live in 75 countries as we speak. So we're growing very fast and really building out a global footprint. But still, our core focus is the U.S. market, as it's been since last time we spoke. And we're really trying to double down on making it easier, more affordable for entrepreneurs and business owners and in general business in the U.S. to use music to build their brands and use a music service and a platform that's compliant and that remunerates music creators at the end of the day, and kind of create that win-win situation where the music creator gets paid and the entrepreneur sells more drinks or more burgers or whatever business she's in. And we're doing so quite successfully.
Yeah, we're going to hit on a number of the things that you talked about there, but I do want to start with that brand piece and that restaurant and bar creating an identity, right? A music identity through the music that you choose. It's not always an easy thing to do. So how do you talk about it? How do you make the brand part, the sound part of your brand? What do you think?
Well, I mean, the whole idea with this company from the beginning was it was initially called Soundtrack Your Brand, and that pretty much is we do what we were called. We help brands find the right music for the right place at the right time, so to improve business performance, basically, because it's been proven hundreds of times through research that if you soundtrack your brand correctly, you will not only build brand equity and improve customer experience, it will also drive your top line business. So that's really why we're here. But what's happened, I would say, the last 3 years since we spoke, a lot of more focus has come to AI as a tool. And we've always been, believe it or not, like the music industry, and I've been building consumer services previously with building up Beats Music, Apple Music, and we were part of Spotify and so forth. So I've been in kind of the music distribution revolution, if you may, the last 20 years of my life. And AI has always been like a core component in music distribution. And for Soundtrack, we're now kind of really building out the ability for businesses to use AI to soundtrack their brand. So our AI proposition has evolved quite significantly, and today you can just use a prompt to describe your brand for us and what type of customer experience you want. And our computers or our machines, our intelligence will help you create that specific sound for your brand in seconds. So AI is more and more present in our business and in our product, and it's helping entrepreneurs to be more efficient in their soundtracking.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I was curious how much the tech has impacted that, but talk about that. That's interesting. So you could just kind of prompt and talk to it and tell it about your restaurant. I was going to ask you about day parts. Night is different than lunch and happy hour and late night. There's those different things that are part of it. So tell me a little bit more about it. I'm an independent restaurant. I'm in New York City, happening. Lots of people are competing for my time. What are some of the things that I do to get started? How easy is it?
Well, oversimplifying now. First of all, you need to find a music service that is licensed for business use. So, and that sounds pretty straightforward, but it's not, because most of the services that, are well known are only licensed for consumer use. So
Right.
Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, those services are only licensed and are only allowed to be used for private usage, meaning in your headphones. They're not licensed for commercial use. So first of all, you need to find Soundtrack or a similar product. And when you found that product, okay, I'm going to buy this service. I know this is going to kind of fulfill the compliance requirement of a music service. And then you need to think about, okay, I also need to be licensed with the PROs, right? In the US, there's mainly the big four are ASCAP, BMI, CSEC, and GMR. Actually, a US business needs to be licensed with all four of them. Then there's actually 2 or 3 additional opportunistic PROs that are kind of popping into the market trying to get some part of the business as well. But we can talk about that later. But you need to solve for the PRO stuff as well. And very few businesses in the US are licensed with all 4 major PROs. So there's a huge compliance gap. The good news is if you find a great service, hopefully Soundtrack obviously being biased in this equation, but if just as an example, I'm here now. So if you get Soundtrack, you not only get a compliant music service that's built for business, you also get the PRO licensing included. So you only get, one bill, one credit card, the whole licensing equation to use music in your business in the US is solved through one subscription. So that's pretty convenient, right? Then once that has been put in place and you're ready to go in terms of a compliant music solution for your business, which you're not going to get sued, you're not going to get people come into your store and say, hey, you need to pay this and this and that. You'll just show them the certificate from Soundtrack and say, no, we're covered with Soundtrack, we're licensed fully, please move on. Then you need to start with the fun stuff, which is, okay, what does my brand sound like? What's the soundtrack of my brand? And that equation can be solved in different ways. One is, as I referred to, through AI. You can start by describing your brand through a prompt into our service. And then our service will start providing you with example playlists on what that would sound like. And then you can fine tune it based on the prompt. So let's say you're in New York, as you said, you're a upscale Italian restaurant with 3 locations in Midtown. You can kind of describe that as a upscale Italian restaurant, New York, with a professional crowd, and that might like 1 or 2 tracks from Frank Sinatra mixed with new progressive classical music or whatnot. That's a perfect prompt right there. And then you'll get a recommendation on what kind of an initial soundtrack would look like for your brand. If that's not the way you want to go about it, you can also go into the service and choose what we refer to as ready-made soundtracks or ready-made playlists. There's a whole section for restaurants specifically where you can choose between, even for Italian restaurants, there's a specific couple of playlists, and then you can go in and listen to them and see if they fit your business and you like them, and then you can use them. So like all packaged, ready and done, updated, and you really don't have to do anything more. And kind of our service has already curated it for you. Or another example is you're completely into music and you know exactly what tracks you want and in what sequence. You can actually create it from scratch, track by track, sequencing over time. Design it based on what you want during lunch and what you want during dinner, totally bespoke for your brand. So all of the above, I would say, is enabled through the platform. It depends on how much you want to lean in.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions there, but I'm glad you went through the licensing stuff. I had some notes to talk about it. It's one of those things that, like anything else, nobody wants to think about, but if you don't do it right, there's fines, there's all sorts of things that go wrong. So I love that you guys do it in one place, sign up all your headaches are taken care of, and so forth. Because we won't get into the negative of getting fined and getting in trouble, but it is a real part of the restaurant industry with playing music. You can't just pull up Spotify and Amazon and hit go and actually, let me stick there for a second, because you probably come across a bar where the managers, and because everyone has it on their phone, and they just start playing music. How do you communicate with the staff how important it is, to stay inside these guardrails?
Well, I use the example of anything else. Like if you and I were running a restaurant, I mean, we wouldn't let the staff decide what's on the menu or just randomly come up with what type of interior, put up their own flowers or change the, linen on the tables. It's all part of an integrated full-on experience. It's our business. Every detail counts, and the devil's in the details when driving these experiential businesses, as you guys know more than I do even. So music is a central, integral part of a brand experience. If you're a restaurant entrepreneur, you should be thinking just as much about the music as almost what's on your menu and what suppliers you have to the kitchen and so forth. So that's my first kind of statement around it. But does that apply to everyone? No. In some instances, some entrepreneurs don't pay as much attention to that music has such a big effect, or have lower understanding of that, and some have full understanding of it. So I think it's a little bit dependent on who it is. But after speaking to anyone, I've never ever heard anyone say that it doesn't matter, and I've never ever heard anyone say that it's terrible. If the music is terrible, people will leave. So that pretty much gives a very clear guidance that you need to think about. Maybe you don't need to be the world expert on it, but at least you need to think about it. And now we have services like Soundtrack who really can empower you and enable you to get everything right from the beginning. And it's just a click away, a 5-minute exercise, and you're good to go.
Let me ask you a question about volume. In restaurants and bars in particular, it's a sensitive topic about having that right mix where you can have a conversation and yet you do want to have the vibe. Is it a target decibel? Is it different based on how many people are in the location, the time of day? How do you guys talk about volume?
Well, first of all, you need to kind of get a service that enables, you to change the volume and adjust the volume to optimize the experience. That's the first statement. Believe it or not all services allow you to do that.
Okay.
Which is kind of crazy, but that's the case. But once you have a service that allows you to do that, there's no one kind of guiding solution in terms of decibel or whatnot. It's really kind of adjusted for the specific location, because all locations have different prerequisites in terms of kind of experienced volume. So the best advice I can give is just set up the service and then try and test it, test the level of volume, and then decide with the staff together. So usually it's staff that gets, the biggest negative effect. For example, you're playing, if the volume's too high, staff get tired and staff get annoyed. And, at the end of the day, they might quit or, have a really bad day working, which kind of colors the customer experience at the end of the day. So it's not that simple, it's not that complicated. Sorry. You just kind of set it up, decide for volume that you think is correct, have 1 or 2, 3 staff meetings, maybe the first week, and talk about, what do you guys think? Are we on the right level of volume? Should we increase? Should we decrease? And that's, anyone can do it.
Question for you about just when the humans take over, right? Because you can set it, and it looks like some of your algorithms will run pretty hands off. But I know a lot of staff and people are really into music, and they like to take control a little bit more. Who have you seen do it more when they get involved? I'm just kind of curious here, who in the restaurant kind of takes control sometimes. And then even when humans are in charge, how have you seen them effectively balance, playing all the top hits and, repetitive stuff, and what are some more tips around, who's going to do it and how to have fun with it?
Well, first of all, the Soundtrack platform, one of our major benefits, or where we really put in hours to develop a service that helps the entrepreneur, is about this a system that allows for many users.
Mm-hmm.
So in some cases, you actually want every person in the staff having the Soundtrack app, but with different types of enablement. So our system allows for, let's say, the shift manager or the restaurant manager, that she's the only one that has the mandate to change the volume, but maybe the rest of the staff have the ability to skip a track, as an example. That's the setup that you can decide yourself. Who do you want to empower to do what? Usually, the use case is that all kind of shift managers have the app, and they have the full ability to adjust volume in real time and adjust the playlist and kind of swap the playlist or jump forward with a track or whatnot. And then the rest of the staff has just the ability to maybe control volume. So that's one setup. Another setup is that, nobody except the restaurant manager has any mandate to change anything. That's also a usual use case. So it depends on kind of how you delegate in your organization and what you want to help, the team contribute to. It's just a limitation in the system, or just a setup in the system, and it's depending on how you want to run your business. We can always recommend, and the short story is usually it's the shift manager that has the app that has the ability to control, but only within the boundaries of the brand sound. So let's say our restaurant in New York, once again, maybe they have a space, their own catalog with maybe 20 playlists or 10 schedules, and the shift manager can change in between them. So they're always on brand, but they feel empowered to affect the experience right there and then.
Yeah. That's good, because when I asked the question, I really didn't anticipate everyone having access to the app, like the different staff having access to it. So that's actually really interesting to hear. So yeah, it sounds like the main person is going to have more control, and then other folks can get involved in that, which I like. Because I know I'm into music, and I know a lot of the younger folks are too. So I'm sure they like to have a say in the curation of it. Since we're talking about hardware a little bit, or in this case the phones and stuff, what else is needed? I know it's probably so much more easy than it was years ago. I remember seeing the restaurants with the racks and racks and racks of stuff. But how difficult or hard, or what's needed these days for music inside a restaurant and bar?
Well, that hasn't changed that much. It's pretty much up to your kind of audio setup. Usually a restaurant does, when you're opening a restaurant, as you're kind of buying an amplifier, you're having an audio installer come to your venue and kind of put up 4 or 5 speakers and the cable work for that to the amplifier. And then you need an input to an amplifier, which could be either you buy our Soundtrack player, which is just like a headless carrier of software, a hardware device that you put in there, and then you control it through the software. Or you use your Android platform or your iOS platform, meaning your phone or your POS computer, whatever software you want to be running on. But more and more people are buying kind of the Soundtrack player because it's a dedicated player for this use case only, and then you control it through your software interfaces. So that's a very normal setup in the US.
Okay. Hey, what just content filters, bad words? How does it work in your setup?
Well, back to kind of that use case of, first of all, you need to decide your soundtrack and decide what does your brand sound like and kind of set the filters for that. Then the next exercise is day parting, meaning scheduling music. So putting music over a time period. So lunch sounds different than dinner, than kind of, in between and so forth. That's the right music first at the right time. And then at the right place, meaning that maybe different venues sound different because one is more upscale than the others. One's in a mall and one's in, Midtown or whatnot. So having that equation in place. But then on top of that, you can apply filters, of course. And one very useful filter that we have is explicit lyrics. Removing that from the equation, because there's a lot of that in pop culture, as we all know, and some people are more open to it, and and some people want to be, cleaner in the output. That's a very advanced feature that we have. It takes a lot of time analyzing music to understand, foul language is easy, but also context and intent. Like it's a more advanced equation than just, removing the bad words. So we pride ourselves in spending a lot of time with AI to kind of analyze music and help the user get these tracks out of it, should they choose to do so.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than the wrong stuff coming out at the wrong time in the wrong place. So a serious issue. Let's talk about the website. Maybe it's right on there, or you can give some guidelines. If I was a restaurant, one of my questions would be, hey, well, this sounds great. What's an average restaurant like me going to be charged for something like this? So what are some of those ranges and approximate positions for folks to think about?
Well, here's to my kind of initial point with all this complex licensing in the U.S. market. With first I need to get a legal service, then I need to cover at least 4 PROs. The good news is now we've kind of put in millions of hours of work for you. Maybe not millions, but hundreds of thousands of hours of work for you. So it's all in one service. So if you get Soundtrack, which you can find on soundtrack.io, it's all covered. So back to pricing in your question, we have 2 different types of subscriptions. One subscription is for our essential product, which is a product where you can create stations like with Pandora, more or less. So it's what it's called, referred to in the music industry as semi-interactive product, but you can't really pick track by track. That product retails for around $35 per month, give and take, depending on if there's a campaign going or whatnot. So just call it roughly, $300 to $400 a year for the total covers of all licensing in a great product. And then we have our unlimited product, which is the fully, what we refer to in the music industry as on demand. You can pick every track, you can create your own playlist, and that retails from, around $50. So that's $500 to $600 per year. So those are the 2 options. And like if you're running a business today or a restaurant, that you're almost paying, $300 to $400 just by paying 1 PRO. And you need 4 of them. And now everything is included. So there is significant cost benefits of using a service like Soundtrack, because you're getting all the PRO licensing in one, and you're getting a service as well. If you're paying them separately, your cost will probably 3 to 5 times higher. So once you figure that out, not only is it like a easy to access service, but it also leads to cost savings, which is important, and always important, but even more so in this tough economy.
Always. Yeah. Thanks for running through that. Let's kind of flip the script a little bit and talk a little bit more personal about you and growing up. I mean, you're growing a company. You guys have been growing like mad, like crazy. You're a business owner. You've been in lots of tech environments and music environments. What would you say is one of the really solid pieces of advice you've had over time?
Well, I mean, there's a bunch, but really when I think of what I try to do as a tech executive and a tech entrepreneur is focus. I kind of sometimes say my business religion is focus, and kind of, brutal focus. I mean, if you're lucky enough and skilled enough to find a business concept and maybe a brand positioning that you truly believe is strong and works and creates a clear path towards a successful business, then work on that, 7 days a week, every hour you're at work. Get that laser focus into executing on your idea. Don't let all these distractions that are everywhere, right, derail you from your focus. So I always check in with myself, like, am I still focused? Am I still focused on that idea, that initial thesis that I truly believe with both my brain and my heart? And am I executing on that focus every day? So sounds, very, very basic, but so many people, there's so many things going on, staff, macroeconomic uncertainty, just general problems showing up every day you go to work that can derail you from focus, but always kind of check in at the end of the day. Did I execute on my idea today? Did I progress on that idea today? So that's at least how I try to conduct myself, because I get, every week I'm distracted by some opportunity that sounds great. Oh, we should go into this line of business. You should add this service layer. You should do this collaboration. But it's always back to, all right, what do? We build this. We have 100 million addressable locations in my business worldwide. Yeah. We're at 100, we just surpassed 100,000. We're nowhere. So just focus on this core business until it's relevant and global and big, and I'm in the millions of subscriptions rather than the hundreds of thousands. That's my religion.
How do you find yourself using any tool or any method in particular when you say, to be brutally focused? Is it a to-do list that you do? Is it an app that you use? Is it just blocking yourself out in a room for 3 hours every morning? Like, what are some things you found that help you focus?
Well, there's, I would say, 2 core dimensions in this religion of focus. And it's one, me as the leader and the founder of the company being focused on my thesis and checking in. And that's kind of an easy exercise for myself. I'm back to, okay, we're still building out music streaming for business, becoming the world leader, and that is selling subscriptions to businesses. Are we doing that? So I check in with myself. That's the easy part. Then I expand to my organization. Does my C-suite leadership still understand the core focus of the business? Are they executing on initiatives that point and lead and progress that vision, meaning selling subscriptions to music subscriptions to businesses worldwide? If not, they're not focused enough. And then outside of, are they informing, educating their organizations around our vision, and so that their organizations underneath them are also executing on this vision? So it's me being out in the organization, checking in with my management team as well, processing my management team to unlock that focus, and then reassuring that the management team have checked in with their team so that they are executing on that vision all the time. And then when I speak to the whole organization, it's always simplifying the message, bringing it down to rudimentary core directions. And usually it's like, this is what we're doing. This is where we're going. In 10 years, we should be here. That means that 2025, we're going to be doing this in order to progress that. So in the broader long-term vision, bring down what's the tactical focus for this year that will take us to that point. But it's all just different levels of enabling and unlocking that long-term focus.
I just grabbed because it was here, but a book that I recently finished that, as you're talking, made me think about is this book Traction by Gino Wickham. And if you haven't read this, you would love it, man. It really goes through a lot of stuff you just said, but it's very systematized. Really brings people back to quarterly check-ins, making sure, because you have those big rah-rah talks and everyone gets excited, and then 2 weeks later it starts to fray.
What do I do now?
Yeah, and then not, you think you're on track 3 months later, but you're not, because people have drifted. So really bringing people back, engaged. Okay, they go do their stuff, bring them back, engaged. Really don't let it slip. Don't, just because things are going well doesn't mean they're actually going well in all the pieces. People start to drift and get distracted, as you said. So this is a really strong recommendation. Traction. Any books you're reading now, or anything you like to recommend to entrepreneurs?
I read a bunch. Usually here in Europe, we take a bit more vacation than you guys do. So I'm always like reading management literature on the week or two I take off. Nothing that I want to recommend right now, but I do want to kind of go back to a reference about a management literature and just really basic stuff. And I think it was Michael Porter, who's one of the strategy gods in the US, who said, back to my my focus discussion previously, like strategy is about saying no to things. And that's so true, because there's so many things that you can say yes to all the time. In my business, like I said, there's these opportunities left and right, people telling you what to do. You should do a partnership here and there. Like if you really have done your strategy work and kind of aligned your organization and explained and simplified your strategy, it becomes easier to say no to distractions. And I think that's kind of really something that I took with me since, 30 years ago, coming out of business school. Like just strategies about saying no. And it's really hard to say no to things, specifically things that actually generate revenue, and very easily so, but that are not on strategy, that do not support your long-term vision with your business. Then you should say no. You should have the discipline to say no.
Yeah, it's one of the, it's 100%. Again, just I'll go right back to it. That's one of the things that happens in here is you're doing well. Then, so just like you guys, people are hitting you all the time. Let's do this. Let's do this. And it all sounds great. But then, yeah, it derails you from that big overarching mission. And then everybody in life, and especially restaurants. Wow. Talk about Distractionville. I mean, it's a hot moving business all the time. People are knocking on your back door, your front door, your side door. Let's do this, let's do that. So yeah, finding those opportunities for focus are a big deal. Just the last thing I'll hit on is any trends. You can talk about your piece of the business or overarching any trends you see in the restaurant space in the next 2 to 3 years.
So restaurants is one of our core segments at Soundtrack. It's these segment of customers that are, I would say, most sophisticated and most lean forward, because restaurant entrepreneurs have a tendency to be very good at brand and very good at customer experience. I mean, it's core. It's the core, right, for you. So I see in terms of the application of music and using our service specifically, I see a trend where people want to be able to track real-time data. So really trying to understand what data do I need to improve my restaurant business. So even though it's a sophisticated kind of emotional business, it's maybe not the most sophisticated industry in terms of data, but that's really becoming relevant now. And I think a lot of the restaurant chains that are progressive and are leading the way are really good at data, meaning understanding what drives commercial behavior, understanding how to trigger different types of upsells or expansion sales, meaning how can we use this occasion to sell like a more dessert, or can sell a more better margin wine. And like the whole data play in the restaurant industry has been quite trivial up until now, in my humble opinion. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying people don't understand it. It's just like it's been challenging to find like a full data landscape for restaurant business. So I think the POS systems and kind of the booking software and things like that are getting better than better. But I think everyone's looking for like a bigger platform and a bigger play, and also potentially talking to consultants that can help them become more data driven. So that's what I'm seeing in the restaurant industry, really a urge. And then everyone's talking about, the AI revolution and how that's going to affect the restaurant industry. Every industry is talking about it, but what does that mean for the restaurant industry? And I think I haven't seen any amazing applications of it yet, but of course, like being able to create the soundtrack of your specific restaurant by describing it through prompt feels like a pretty good first use case, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the AI trend is coming. I'm seeing it in the operations side, ways to fix costs, fix labor, run kind of marketing in the background. Automated marketing stuff is happening, so that is definitely a trend that is not going away. So plug yourself in. We covered a lot. Send them again to the website. Anything else you want to remind them to? I know there's probably an app. website, social? What do you got?
I mean, it's just back to my job in this equation is making it simple for restaurant entrepreneurs to be successful. I can contribute with the music component of that, being successful. So you go to soundtrack.io. I'll help you easily create the best atmosphere you possibly can with your brand with the latest catalog. We're at 150 million tracks right now. We're the only service in the world that has the full repertoire. You can be relevant on, the end of this week. I'm going to go see Drake here in Stockholm with my 13-year-old or 15-year-old daughter. She's 15 now, by the way. She's not 13 anymore. I keep saying 13. Right. She's 15. And the restaurants around the stadium, I know they're going to be over-indexing Drake all week just to kind of meet the staff. It's about being smart about it. I want to empower the entrepreneurs to do that. And then at the end of the day, I want it to come at a fair price without the confusion. That's actually reality in the US right now. It's impossible for these poor restaurant entrepreneurs to understand how to be licensed. I mean, it's complex running a business. How can they possibly have time to figure out what PROs to? This is solved for you now. Right. You go to soundtrack.io, you buy the service. Anyone that tells you you're not licensed, I would personally contact them and talk to them and tell them to bugger off. So you can remove that friction from your business and at a very fair price.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the summary there. Soundtrack.io is the place to go, folks. Ola Sars, founder and CEO of Soundtrack. Make sure you check them out at soundtrack.io for more great restaurant marketing and service, people, tech tips, and more. Stay tuned to us here at runningrestaurants.com. Do us a favor right now, like the episode, share it, comment on it, review it. All that stuff is helpful to get the word out. We appreciate all that stuff. Ola, it's been great, man. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.